If you've spent the last few evenings scrolling through endless listings, watching videos of dough being rolled like a magic carpet, and still feel stuck between "I need a dough sheeter" and "maybe a rolling pin will do," you're not alone. The hesitation usually comes from a fear of splurging on a machine that sits idle, or worse, buying one that can't keep up with the rhythm of a busy kitchen. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'll walk through what the VEVOR 15.7-inch commercial dough sheeter actually brings to the table, where it shines, and the moments it might leave you reaching for a backup plan. First, let's set the scene. Imagine you run a small bakery that sells croissants, puff pastry tarts, and a handful of custom fondant cakes each morning. Your current process is a mashup of hand-rolled sheets and an old, uneven hand crank roller you borrowed from a friend. The result? Inconsistent layers, a lot of wasted dough, and the occasional burnt edge when you try to speed things up. The promise of a commercial-grade sheeter is simple. Take the guesswork out of thickness, give you a reliable fold, and free up your hands for decoration. The VEVOR model aims to do exactly that with a reversible operation, an adjustable thickness range from 0 to 1.4 inches, and a folding design that promises that classic three-fold pastry technique without the manual gymnastics. Who should actually consider this machine? If you're a home baker who has outgrown the kitchen countertop roller but isn't ready to invest in a multi-ton industrial sheeter, the VEVOR sits in a sweet spot. Its 15.7-inch width accommodates most batch sizes for a boutique bakery, a coffee shop pastry case, or a serious weekend hobbyist who wants to crank out a dozen croissants in under an hour. The adjustable thickness knob is intuitive. You turn it, and the rollers move in or out, letting you switch from a featherlight puff pastry sheet to a sturdier dough for a rustic galette without stopping the line. For anyone who needs that level of flexibility, the machine feels like a natural extension of the workflow rather than a bulky add-on. On the flip side, if you're running a high-volume production line that churns out dozens of loaves per hour, you'll likely outgrow this unit quickly. The motor, while adequate for small batches, doesn't have the torque you'd find on a dedicated bakery line. Also, the machine's footprint is a consideration. It sits on a sturdy countertop, but you'll need a dedicated space that can handle its 15-inch width and the extra clearance for the folding arms to swing. If you're limited on floor space, you may find the reversible operation more of a hindrance than a help because you'll have to shuffle the unit around to access the backside. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths. The biggest win for me was the stable puffing capability. When I set the rollers to a thin setting and fed a butter-laminated croissant dough, the sheets emerged uniformly layered, and the butter didn't ooze out the sides. This stability is a direct result of the machine's solid steel frame and the way the rollers stay parallel under load. In a real-world kitchen that's juggling multiple tasks, that consistency means fewer dough resets and less time cleaning up sticky mishaps. The reversible operation also proved handy during a fondant cake order. I needed a thin, smooth sheet for the cake base, then a thicker, more pliable layer for a decorative border. Flipping the machine allowed me to run the same batch through the rollers without having to reposition the dough or manually lift the rollers. It saved a few minutes per batch, which adds up when you're on a deadline. Another point worth highlighting is the folding design. Traditional sheeters require you to manually fold the dough after each pass, which can be tedious and introduces unevenness if you don't have a steady hand. This VEVOR unit folds the dough automatically as it passes through, creating that classic three-fold structure that pastry chefs love. I used it for Danish pastries, and the result was a clean, even fold that gave the pastries a nice lift after baking. But no machine is without its trade-offs. The first practical weakness I ran into was the thickness adjustment range. While 0 to 1.4 inches covers most pastry needs, it can be a bit coarse when you're aiming for ultra-thin filo-style sheets. You'll notice a few extra millimeters that, while not disastrous, might require a quick hand roll to get that paper-thin finish. For most everyday pastry work, it's fine, but if you specialize in that level of delicacy, you might need an auxiliary hand roller. The second issue is the noise level. The motor hums louder than a standard countertop mixer, which isn't a deal breaker, but can be noticeable in an open-plan kitchen or a home setting where you're trying to keep the morning calm. A simple solution is to place the machine on a rubber mat, which dampens the vibration a bit, but the acoustic footprint remains. Finally, the machine's efficient.